Tonight, World Energy GH2 gets the green light for what could be the country's first commercial wind-to-hydrogen facility. That story and
the legal matter of Dr. Louis Bourget, the oral surgeon who guided a prison guard through the extraction of an inmate's teeth, has concluded in Gander Supreme Court today. We'll have that story tonight on Here and Now.
I'll tell you what's against human dignity. It's protecting child abusers. That's against human dignity. And this is just a distraction from the church dealing with that.
Newfoundland and Labrador advocates are pushing back against the Vatican's latest stance on gender-affirming surgery.
We had never seen anything like it. This little 7-year-old, I mean, he was like a pretzel.
She's like my mom because she helped for us, she do everything.
30 years ago, they found safe harbor in St. John's, and one woman was there to help. Tonight, a long-awaited reunion.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Well, it's full steam ahead for the province's first wind-to-hydrogen project. World Energy GH2 got the green light today for a mega project that will see more than 300 wind turbines crop up along the Port-au-Port Peninsula and Codroy Valley. Late last month, the company secured a $128 million loan from Ottawa, and today the province gave the environmental go-ahead, provided the company can meet certain requirements.
Looked at jurisdictions across the country, put the best of conditions in place that we can to mitigate any of those concerns that people have. For example, if someone was to say that this was going to be on my house based on schematics or whatever, that's not true. What's happening is there's a 1 meter buffer from any residence. And we put that into conditions, and the proponent actually brought that forward as part of their commitments they've made, that it will be no closer than 1 kilometer to a residence. So that's a protection that mitigates a number of factors like noise and others.
Well, government has given about 60 conditions for that company, some of which have to be resolved before construction can begin. So what is the timeline for this West Coast wind farm? More on this story ahead on Here and Now. When a rare move, Crown prosecutors are seeking an adult sentence for a 14-year-old accused of murder. The boy is accused of killing a 65-year-old woman in Mount Pearl last summer. Here and Now's Ryan Cook brings us this update.
Few details were made public following the killing last August. We know a 65-year-old woman was found dead in her home. Police did not say how she died. A 14-year-old boy was arrested, and police were looking for a blue recycling bag that they felt was a key piece of evidence. Now that boy is in a world of trouble, charged with second-degree murder and facing the possibility of life in prison. Prosecutors declined comment yesterday, but confirmed they are seeking an adult sentence if the boy is convicted. It's rare, but is allowed under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. The boy has yet to stand trial. He hasn't even entered a plea yet. But prosecutors are required to signal their intention for sentencing as early as possible so the accused and their lawyer can prepare. A lot of questions remain to be answered in this case, including whether or not this 14-year-old will be treated as an adult. Ryan Cook, CBC News, St. John's.
And staying with news from the courts, the trial for Robert Regular entered a second day. The 72-year-old lawyer is accused of 4 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of sexual interference. The complainant returned to the stand today and was under painstaking cross-examination from Regular's defense. Ariana Kelland was there and has the latest.
The woman tried her best not to look Rosellen Sullivan in the eye, instead directing her answers to the judge, retelling her version of events in detail as Sullivan, a seasoned defense lawyer, attempted to poke holes in the woman's story and credibility. Sullivan began to chip away at any discrepancies between statements the woman has given to police since the investigation began, starting with when the woman was 12 and says she was groped by Robert Regular, her mother's lawyer, in a vehicle near his law office. Throughout, the woman insisted she was telling the truth, that this happened a long time ago, that of course her memory isn't the best after trauma she says she experienced. "I'm not backpedaling," the woman said. "I never took any notes on this. I never took photos of bruises or took notes of who I did or didn't tell." In sometimes uncomfortable detail, Sullivan continued, picking up on inconsistencies and instances that Sullivan says could not have happened the way the woman said they did. She suggested that the woman fabricated her story to police to bolster her claim that she was having sex for legal advice and services. Sullivan reminded the woman she was testifying under oath. "How do we know if it's from your memory or if you're just trying to put things together?" said Sullivan. The complainant will be back on the stand for a third day tomorrow. Ariana Kellen, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, now to Gander, an oral surgeon will not have a criminal record despite pleading guilty to assault after permitting a prison guard to extract an inmate's teeth. Dr. Louis Bourget was given an absolute discharge in Gander Supreme Court today. Here and now's Troy Turner has the details.
Louis Bourget is a free man. His absolute discharge means he's guilty of assault, but he hasn't been convicted. There's no probation order and no criminal record, and Bourget didn't want to talk about it.
You got an absolute discharge. How does that make you feel?
I can't comment. Sorry. Sorry, I take this.
It's the end of a saga that started in October 2020 when 2 correctional officers accompanied an inmate to Bourget's clinic. The patient was sedated, and Bourget suggested one of the guards remove 4 teeth. He told the court he got caught up in a teaching moment. Video of the incident began to circulate online, and police charged Bourget. Then, last month, he asked the court to give him an absolute discharge, saying his career would be over otherwise. Today in court, Justice Melanie DeRizzo said the sentence must be proportionate to the gravity of the offense. She also said a criminal conviction is not in the public's interest. Bourget has been sanctioned by dental boards in this province and Nova Scotia, where he lives.
Nothing happens next because unless there's a conviction, the same set of facts were there for disciplinary action, so nothing's changed.
While the Dental Association says it doesn't expect further action against Dr. Bourget, it will check with legal counsel to determine next steps. Troy Turner, CBC News, Gander.
Well, advocates in the province are pushing back tonight after the Vatican released a list of what it calls violations of human dignity. It condemns things like gender-affirming surgery and surrogacy. As Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports, some say this latest document is especially harmful for trans youth.
Poverty, war, and human trafficking, all listed in yesterday's document from the Vatican as being grave violations of human dignity. But the governing administrative body for the Catholic Church is also taking aim at gender theory and gender-affirming care, calling both, quote, extremely dangerous.
I'll tell you what's against human dignity. It's protecting child abusers. That's against human dignity. And this is just a distraction from the church dealing with that.
Gemma Hickey is the president of a group dedicated to ending clergy abuse. Hickey says the latest stance from the church on gender is harmful, especially for young people.
Transgender youth are at a higher rate of suicide, addiction, homelessness, but yet I wasn't surprised by this document.
Hickey says gender-affirming care was a lifeline for them, and it's also endorsed by medical professionals, including the Canadian Psychological Association and the Canadian Pediatric Society. Hickey says the Vatican should be held accountable for what its views may promote.
Back when I was a kid, there were no terms like transgender. I had nothing. I had no resources, no access to medical care. It was very isolating growing up on an island and growing up in a family that was a devout Roman Catholic. And so I internalized a lot of homophobia, transphobia. I even went to see a conversion therapist, which, resulted in me attempting suicide.
Rhea Rollman is the author of A Queer History of Newfoundland and says that this is a step in the wrong direction.
Every major medical organization in the world has come out in support of gender-affirming healthcare, emphasized that it's safe, it's effective, it's essential for people who need it.
Historically, she says these types of views have caused great institutional harm.
And that traditionalist approach is what facilitated the operation of authoritarian institutions like Mount Cashel here in this province, which led to the enactment of violence, abuse, and sexual abuse against generations of Newfoundlanders and Labradorians.
Both Hickey and Rollman say there's rising hate against the trans community and fear the Vatican statement will mean more fuel for that hate. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, temperatures today definitely cool out there across most of the province, anywhere from -3 to about +2 for us in Newfoundland and Labrador. You head further west, though, we've got temperatures that are feeling very summer-like, about 18 degrees in Toronto. The reason for that is where we've got our jet stream. So we've got a dip in the jet stream right now, but as we head through the next couple of days, the good news is that we're going to say goodbye to these cool temperatures and back to more seasonable. In fact, some of these temperatures are actually going to be well above where you should be sitting this time of year, particularly up across Labrador and then even across the island. That will happen through Thursday into Friday and even into Saturday and into the beginning of next week. We will continue to see those mild temperatures. Not the story today, though. We do have that onshore flow. Flurries, the story, even some freezing drizzle being reported, some grapple being reported through parts of central. But this is generally going to stick around, even up across Labrador. We're looking at some flurries. We'll get into all the details coming up.
Thanks, Ashley. Well, a series of grisly crashes has given a Conception Bay North Highway a deadly reputation. Now, the son of a man who died on that highway is calling for change. Thousands rely on the Veterans Memorial Highway each day to get where they need to go. The CBC's Daryl Roberts has more.
Andrew Norris was a 45-year-old Paradise resident with a young family. His son, Aaron, says he was also a respected community volunteer.
So a very involved community member. He knew a lot of people and a lot of people knew him.
The family had a summer home in Carbonear, and they'd get there using the Veterans Memorial Highway, a 2-lane, 38.5-kilometer stretch used by 10,000 vehicles a day, according to the province. Last Father's Day, Andrew and his younger son were traveling that road when tragedy struck.
He was struck by another vehicle head-on at around 100 kilometers an hour. He was alive on impact. My brother broke his femur, and they were both taken to Carbonear Hospital. Unfortunately, on the way to the hospital, and at the hospital, he lost his battle. We're kind of trying to adjust.
Aaron credits his dad with veering away from the oncoming vehicle, saving his brother's life. Aaron says his brother has since recovered. According to the RCMP, the other car, which was speeding, traveled over the center line and hit Andrew's van head-on. The other driver, a 29-year-old man, died at the scene. The Veterans Memorial Highway connects communities in Conception Bay North with the Trans-Canada Highway, but over the years, it's garnered a deadly reputation. The mayor of one of those communities wants to see changes.
We have to do something and have it analysed and look at it again and make sure that maybe it's something we can do that would make it safer. A divided highway would certainly, a twin highway would be certainly a good solution. It costs money, yes, but it would save lives.
Aaron says he's asked Transportation and Infrastructure Minister John Abbott to look into twinning the road. In a statement, a spokesperson said the province is always looking at potential improvements. Beginning in 2018, the province added passing lanes in 4 locations, as well as new ramps on an interchange near Carbonear. According to the province, there were more than 400 collisions on the highway from 2012 to 2022. The RCMP say from 2018 to now, there were 11 fatal collisions, resulting in 12 deaths. But they say the problem isn't the road, it's the drivers.
Those that are using the highway, as a highway to travel from point A to point B at highway speeds, please maintain that speed limit. Have patience. Don't take increased risks. Certainly don't drive impaired, and always, always wear your seatbelt, whether you're driving within a community or on the highway.
Aaron, who's 20 now, says he misses talking with his dad.
Me and my dad were very close. We often talked a lot about sports, school, just everything, really. He was one of my best friends. I talked to him every night when I got home. Having that person and not talk to anymore in your life, it's like a big void that really just can't be filled.
Meanwhile, Aaron worries about more crashes on the Veterans Memorial Highway. Just 3 weeks ago, there was another head-on collision on the highway. One driver died at the scene, the other sustained serious injuries. The RCMP is investigating. Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, Uber is clear to hit the road just ahead of the province's peak tourist season. Government has granted a license to the company. Uber is now looking for potential drivers and says it expects to launch a local ride-sharing service later this spring. The province made the legislative changes to permit ride-sharing services back in November. This will make Uber the first ride-sharing company to operate in Newfoundland and Labrador. Government first issued a license to Red Sea Riding this winter, a company owned by a man accused of sexual assault. But when that information came to light the following day, the license was revoked. Well, 2 Russian acrobats who defected to Canada in 1992 have returned to celebrate a Newfoundland woman who helped them build new lives. The former members of the Moscow circus and their growing family continue to perform across North America, something they say would not have been possible without the kindness they found here in St. John's. Here in Mark Quinn reports.
3 decades ago, 7 Russians found safe haven in St. John's. Alex and Elena Arestov were raised in a Soviet circus, schooled to become acrobats and tour the world representing the USSR. But in 1992, the Soviet Union was dissolving, and the Arestovs were looking for change too. They found it when they walked off a plane in Newfoundland.
I knew just 2 words, hi and goodbye. So
they left the Soviet Union behind, but to keep up their circus skills, they found a home at the Cygnus Gymnastics Club in St. John's.
You know, a miracle. It's God. We just walk. Oh, what is it? Gym. We can't believe it because we knew nothing. For me, it's wow, we find a place. Maybe we can practice here.
I think it's great.
Back then, Judy Tulk was the manager at Cygnus. She spoke no Russian, but that didn't stop her.
They were there every day, and no one was communicating because we couldn't. So one day I said, you know, we got to go down and make contact. So I went down and I sat on the side of the pit, and Alex came over and sat down beside me. We looked at each other, and I said hello, and he said hi.
Tulk helped the Russians settle in St. John's, and she says they learned a lot from each other.
We have a lot of the ideas that they didn't have. So we just shared, and they coached a few of the girls, and they loved it, and it's been great.
We were so amazed at what they were doing. We had never seen anything like it. And they were just turning this little 7-year-old. I mean, he was like a pretzel.
In the early 90s, they needed to make a living. They were highly trained entertainers, and the city was studded with audiences. Tulk helped bring them together.
I was the manager, and I would book bookings for them. And we went to just about every school in St. John's and put off a performance for the elementary and primary grades. And we were so well received, it was unbelievable.
Slowly, they devised a plan to stay in Newfoundland and start a circus school.
I think it's great because, I mean, St. John's has never had anything like that, and why not try something new? I think it's a real opportunity, and I really don't think we can pass up on it.
But the Arestovs saw more opportunity in the bigger cities.
They had nothing to start the school with, so they figured that they probably would have to move on to a larger area and grow from there.
The Arestovs have never left the circus life. Young Simon, seen here in 1992, has a family of his own now and performs in huge venues across the United States. At 67, Alex still has it too. He and Elena continue to perform together. But this trip to St. John's is all about Judy Tulk. Retired from Cygnus for 20 years now, she still has a Russian connection.
She's like my mom. Because she helped for us, she do everything, and she took my hand and first step in Canada. She helped for us, everything.
Tulk says she's received much more than she's given.
I don't know, it's just utter happiness. I just can't explain how I feel. You know, I know there's dozens of people who would have done the same thing. It was actually an experience and a joy.
This winter, Tulk turned 80. The Arestovs promised they'll be back for her 90th and 100th birthdays, too. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Oh, what a fabulous story. Well, staying with athletes, a Conception Bay South blind hockey player is lacing up for Team Canada next week. Brandon Joy has been playing hockey since he was little and picked up blind hockey when he was 13. Now he's the first player from this province to be part of the Canadian blind hockey team. They'll face off in a 3-game series against the U.S. this weekend. A dream come true for Joy.
I was that young kid that didn't really know what was on the go, to be honest. Back when I was 13 or 14, the first few events, I loved them, but I didn't know where this was going to take me. So I just hope that I'm able to hopefully inspire kids, put in the work, and hopefully be able to attain their dreams.
You know, this Eid festival is all about caring and sharing happiness with families and friends and neighbors and communities at large around us in Newfoundland. However, we recognize that this year the joy of Eid will not be the same.
Well, coming up, Muslims across the world are getting ready to mark Eid Al-Fitr. In Newfoundland and Labrador, the war in Gaza is casting a shadow over those celebrations.
Well, we've got one more day of onshore flow, and then southerly flow moves in. That means some warmer temperatures are on the way. I'll have all the details in a few minutes.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The bonus prize deadline is midnight, Friday, April 12th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Well, before we get to the weather, Ashley, lots of people still reflecting on the eclipse from yesterday and what a wonderful experience it was for so many.
It was a very cool experience. And for those of us that didn't get a chance to really see the eclipse, I wanted to share something with you that I thought was pretty cool. It's the satellite imagery over the time of the eclipse. And you can see that darkness, that path of totality show up on the satellite. All the clouds disappear because it gets dark, and the clouds are obviously still there, but the satellite doesn't pick it up. So I just thought that was really neat to share with you. It's a good thing that today wasn't the eclipse, because we wouldn't be seeing anything across the province, and that's because we've got that area of low pressure, or rather the onshore flow, that is bringing us some flurry activity, but we are sitting generally, especially up across Labrador, under an area of high pressure, and that is keeping things pretty quiet. But that's also what's helping fuel this onshore flow for most of us and keeping us definitely into some of that colder air. In fact, some of the coldest air for the eastern half of the country. And this, unfortunately, is going to stick around for one more day, it looks like, where we will see these temperatures. These are well below where we should be sitting. In fact, most of the island should be between 5 or 6 degrees as our daytime highs at the moment. Up across Labrador, you're not too far off. Generally around 0 to 2 degrees is your normal for the day. Now, the temperatures are much cooler today on the west coast of the island than they were yesterday. In fact, a little bit warmer for the east, and you're right around anywhere from 1 to 2 degrees, either above or below, up across Labrador. So it is windy out there today, as you may have noticed, anywhere from 50 to as much as 70 kilometers per hour. Unfortunately, those winds are still up. We've got winds gusting around 69 kilometers per hour in Bonavista, Twillingate 63. Cartwright also seeing a wind gust around 57 kilometers per hour. So these cool temperatures are feeling much colder. Out there feels more like -8 in St. John's at the moment. So we have that flurry activity certainly happening across the island. There's a chance we could see some freezing drizzle in the mix at times. That's certainly happening through central, west coast, seeing those flurries as well. And really tonight, there's a whole lot of what you see is what you get. We may see some clearing for the northern peninsula, maybe even wet parts of the west coast. And then same thing for parts of Labrador as well through the overnight. But overall, that unsettled weather will continue. So you're still, don't be surprised to see some flurries. Also, the windy conditions are going to stick around as well. Really all along the northeast coast of the province, we're looking at those northwesterly winds anywhere from about 50 to 60 kilometers per hour tonight. The further closer, I should say, to get to that ridge of high pressure, the winds are lighter, anywhere from about 15 to 20 kilometers per hour for the west coast. Overall, it is going to be a chilly night tonight, minus single digits. That's the story up across Labrador, except in the west, where you'll hover around -17 tonight. That's about 7 degrees below where you should be sitting this time of year. And then for tomorrow, again, unsettled through the day. Some peaks of sun certainly in the mix for some areas, but we're going to see that chance of flurries, freezing drizzle, or even some drizzle through the afternoon. Same thing for southeastern Labrador. Clearing trend, though, for the west and northern portions of Labrador. And eventually you'll see those clearing skies as you head towards the evening hours, as you see kind of that ridge of high pressure sink a little bit further south, but it is going to keep us in onshore flow towards the island. Temperatures tomorrow are going to stay on the chilly side, around -1 to about +2 or +3. Again, breezy winds, 40 to 50 kilometers per hour. For Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures around 2 or 3 degrees for the southeast, otherwise around -1 to +1. But again, under that ridge of high pressure, which means some sunshine. So this will be the end of it. We're looking at some milder temperatures. I'm talking about potential for teens in some cases across the island. Labrador, you're going to get into some nice weather as well. I'll get into all the details coming up a little later in the show.
Well, after 30 days of fasting, Muslims around the world are getting ready to celebrate Eid Al-Fitr. It's a 3-day festival marking the end of the fasting month of Ramadan. Joining me now to talk more about this celebration is Mansoor Pirzada of the Muslim Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks so much for being here. Can you talk about how significant this celebration is on the Islamic calendar?
People, they go in a different mode during the month of Ramadan, where they wake up early morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, and pray, and then keep a fast, and then the whole day they are working like normal people. And around 7 p.m. they break their fast. So, and then go for the prayers and everything. So after 30 days, everybody is looking forward to Eid Al-Fitr, especially children, because that is the time of celebration.
What are the festivities planned for tomorrow?
After the 30 days, people go in the morning for prayer, and then meet and greet. They go home, and then they have food, and the children get presents. It's like Christmas, children will have their presents, and the families, immediate families, they'll visit each other. Whatever people have done, everybody has their shortcomings. Nobody is perfect. Say to each other if they have done anything, okay, apologize to each other, or be happy, just make this whole 30 days of reflecting, on the entire year, and, basically making amends with your neighbors, making amends with your families, and, so this is how it goes about.
What kind of turnout are you expecting?
We are expecting a huge turnout. I'm not sure. The last time, if I remember, there were several thousand, and we are expecting that we will have a similar type of gathering. But, you have to realize, this Eid festival is all about caring and sharing happiness with families and friends and neighbors and communities at large around us in Newfoundland. However, we recognize that this year the joy of Eid will not be the same as previous years. Several of the community members, their families are stuck in Gaza, and so obviously it is not going to be definitely the same joyous Eid as we used to have.
How much will that war be on the minds of people taking part in the celebration tomorrow?
Oh, hugely. I can tell you that, 2 million people are being inhumanely forced to starve to death. So how can, we have our food and not remember those, children? Not only I have family members, in our community, their families, the females who are pregnant, they have been there. They have basically have been being starved to death. Unborn children are dying. They are dying. You can see their bones. You can count their ribs. So, there are like 50,000 people already dead. 2 million people are being homeless and being starved to death, and 15,000 are children. So, yes, we are doing all these things with a heavy heart, but it is not the same.
Well, Mansoor Pirzada, it sounds like tomorrow will be a mixture of celebration and sadness for sure. I really appreciate you speaking with me today. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving.
There were big hopes for a budding cannabis industry here in Argentia, but it's all gone up in smoke.
The due diligence on running a facility like this was probably not totally researched.
I'm Terry Roberts, and I'll have that story coming up.
Well, it's been 5.5 years since Ottawa legalized cannabis, and a lot has happened in the province since then. Nearly 60 cannabis stores have opened, generating nearly $100 million annually in retail sales. The black market has taken a beating too, but it's a different picture on the production side. Here now, Terry Roberts takes a look inside an industry that's experiencing some dramatic highs and lows.
Here's some on the cut. Now can you smell it? You smell the quality though.
Meet Brian Keating. Yes, he's probably best known as the outspoken mayor of Marystown, but he's also chief executive officer here at Argentia Gold. He's literally the face of the business. But this cannabis is not for sale. It's all that's left of a $16 million Placentia Bay gamble that's gone up in smoke.
$1 million security system.
This was a state-of-the-art grow-op located inside a fortress-like building built to wartime standards at the port of Argentia. Some big names attached to this place, proof that there were high hopes for this business.
It was a gold, but it was a bust.
But now these 180 cameras keep a watchful eye over a lot of nothingness. Empty hallways, lunchrooms, change rooms.
So basically this room would have hundreds of thousands of seeds in here, which made 8 little sprouts.
And once flourishing grow rooms are now empty shells.
The echoes are deafening.
Argentia Gold stopped production in January. Nearly 24 jobs gone, along with the millions invested by a deep-pocketed Florida businessman named Bill Higgs.
He wanted this business to grow and probably have 100 employees. But now he feels bad for every employee that he let go.
The much-hyped cannabis cash cow has fizzled, and what was supposed to be a golden crop has turned into a major flop for producers like Argentia Gold. But the gold standard for cannabis failures in this province? This $100 million plant in St. John's. Canopy Growth pulled the plug on it a few years ago, before it produced a single kilogram. So what went wrong?
Job done.
Investors eagerly poured billions into this industry in the lead-up to legalization. And there are now hundreds of producers across Canada, so the market is saturated and slumping badly. 6 years ago, a gram of cannabis was selling for about $10. Now it's $2 or $3. Licensed producers also have to deal with tough tax and regulatory burdens. The federal excise tax, for example, is about $1 on a gram of cannabis. The black market is still a factor, and consumers can also grow 4 cannabis plants in their homes to meet their own needs. It's not the business model many had envisioned, so a painful contraction is underway. Producers like Argentia Gold are going out of business at a rapid rate, and they're losing millions along the way.
It's one of the most scrutinized, regulated industries in the world, and one of the higher tax royalties in the industry. If we were growing corn here or Brian Peckford's cucumbers, we wouldn't be taxed half so much.
But Keating admits they made mistakes.
I guess the best thing to say is that the due diligence on running a facility like this was probably not totally researched.
The Argentia Gold flameout leaves just 2 cannabis producers standing in the province, Oceanic Relief in Burin and Atlantic Cultivation in St. John's. Both are hanging on, and this company just recently started turning a profit with a workforce of more than 200.
We're building a 100-year company. We're not depending on excise tax reform.
Crosby believes this factory has a future because of something called vertical integration. Newfoundland and Labrador is one of the few provinces that allows the consolidation of multiple stages of the supply chain, from cannabis grow-ops to retail sales. Atlantic Cultivation and Oceanic Relief are making full use of this business approach, with both producers also operating a chain of retail stores.
We're in a unique position where we really lean on that vertical integration, and we corrected the business to be able to survive within Newfoundland, and got to cash flow positivity by taking up as much of the menu as we can. And we have a wholesale margin from the grower and then a retail margin. And when you combine those together, it becomes a very healthy business.
I think it's been mammoth leaps forward, but it hasn't been without its challenges over that 5.5 years.
One of the objectives of legalization, meanwhile, was to take the cannabis industry out of the hands of the criminals. The man in charge of the Cannabis Control Act says they're meeting that goal.
We're estimating that we're at about 81% of the market is legal today. So that's, from a standing start 5.5 years ago to go from 0 to 81% today as our best estimate. That's a dramatic leap forward in terms of capturing the illegal market.
In fact, the industry is so competitive that illegal dealers are now taking extreme measures to stay in business.
We hear reports of people coming out of the illicit market, buying legal product and going back to the illicit market with that product.
Back at Argentia Gold, meanwhile, these are tough times, made even more challenging when a recent deal to sell the building collapsed at the 11th hour.
We're in panic mode, really, and a financial bind. When you're down, no matter how great of a company you work for, when you're $20 million down, it's hard to come back to that.
So what's to become of this very large, very expensive, and now very quiet cannabis factory? Well, the answer to that question is rolled up in a big pile of uncertainty. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Argentia.
Returning now to one of our top stories. After nearly 2 years, World Energy GH2 has the green light to push ahead with its wind to hydrogen megaproject on the West Coast. Environment Minister Bernard Davis says there are dozens of restrictions in place and there will be more opportunity for the public to weigh in.
I like to break them down into 3 categories. There's the pre-feasibility, or the pre-construction, which there will be a number of conditions that they have to be dealt with before any shovels go on the ground, for lack of a better term. Then there's conditions that would be in the actual construction, how you're going to do this, and those conditions would deal with that. And then there's conditions that, for the life of the entire project, are from the start to the decommissioning phase, are there, like water monitoring, as an example. It was a long process, and we need to have that, because my interest is in the environmental protection of the province. I see, as an MHA and as a constituent of this province, I see the economic value that can come. As an environment minister, I love the idea of hydrogen as a new battery for the world. I love that idea. But as the environment minister, I have to also make sure that we protect the environment and mitigate as many of the concerns as we possibly can from the people and from the government agencies, because not only do we listen to what the public has, and we did, and we had a significant amount of interest, and we had a significant amount of interest on the pro side as well. So some of the residents that reached out were not necessarily opposed to it. Some were, no doubt, but some were asking more questions. They wanted to know where these were going to be sited, how this was going to look, what kind of impacts would it have on their daily lives. So those things were mitigated in large part by some 60 recommendations or 60 release conditions that were put in place. I don't want to speak to the timelines of that, because that's not, that would be for the proponent to best answer. I do know that this is another step in the process. There is a number of steps that have to go on that all 3 levels of government will weigh into, whether it's water licensing or water permits, whether it's the permits that a municipality would have to give about occupying that area in the municipality. So those are things that is best answered by the proponent. But what today is a step, and this is not the end of the regulatory oversight of the project either. As you can see from the release conditions, there's oversight right through. The public will have an opportunity to participate throughout the process. There's a community liaison committee that's put in place. We've done that once before, or at least once before, in another project that's worked very well with keeping the community engaged with concerns that they may have, or at least insight into what the project is going to look like at different stages. There's also the public participation plan that they have to submit to me in order to move forward the project prior to it ever starting.
Well, to Memorial now, where the university's science department held its 2nd annual Gong Show, showcasing nearly a dozen research projects. It's a more modern way to present a master's and PhD thesis and forces students to explain their work in terms everyone can understand. And for a 2nd year, our own Jeremy Eaton was there to be a judge. Here's how it went.
I'm so excited to welcome you here to the 2nd annual Faculty of Science Gong Show. Introducing our hero, quality controlling RNA interference.
Presenters get 3 minutes to talk about their research in a jargon-free or non-scientific manner, and if they start slipping into sort of their jargon or their research too tightly, the judges get to gong them. And it's meant for fun. The presenters can then rephrase whatever they're going to say in more non-technical terms.
All right, my name is Julia Craig, and I'm a master's student. I'm going to be talking to you a bit about my project today.
So one of the things I think scientists do really well is think about the research. One of the things that I'm not sure we do quite as well is tell people why it's so cool. And so we're trying to get the public more engaged in the Faculty of Science here at Memorial University. And so this gave us an opportunity, the Gong Show, to present research in a non-scientific manner to the public.
And I'm Antonia, a graduate student in nutrition at the University of Potsdam in Germany.
I also think that as a researcher, I spend a lot of time at the bench thinking about science, and so thinking about really specific questions, whereas when I come to conferences, it's sort of broader in scope, and I get to hear about all sorts of science, and so it gets me very invigorated, I suppose.
The winner for this year's Gong Show is Seychelles Christian.
gotta take another look at this. It was such an incredible day for yesterday's solar eclipse. It was hard to beat the weather down in Burgeo, but Ash, there was a solid turnout at the Geo Center for the sunblock party here in St. John's. That's where you were last night. What kind of reaction did the folks up there have when the eclipse was happening?
Well, the funny thing is, well, there you go. So it was, you know, some clouds were moving through and then you get peaks of the sun, which was really neat too. And people just got very excited about it. And I heard upstairs there were people that were crying because they were so excited. And yeah, it was very, very cool.
It can be an emotional thing for
very
some people.
Emotional. Yeah, very emotional. So cool.
All right, so let's have a look at the weather. And I'm happy to hear that temperatures are going up a bit.
They are going up a bit. We're going to say goodbye to this winter-like weather for a little while, which will be nice. Unfortunately, it's going to come with some rain, though. But let's take a look at what's going to happen. So Wednesday evening into Thursday, we will see some clearing as the day goes on. Thursday actually looks pretty nice. We're going to hang on to the onshore flow at least through the first half of the day, and then we see a wind shift. And the rest of Thursday looks beautiful across the island. We should see plenty of sunshine. We do have a little disturbance, though, moving across Labrador that could spark a few showers through the day on Thursday. Eventually, that cloud cover will move back in, but daytime highs should range anywhere from about 3 to as much as 9 degrees across the province. And like I said, just the chance of some showers for Lab West. But you will see your shower potential as we head through the evening and into Friday. Right across Labrador, you may see some flurries in the mix there as well. Clouds will be on the increase through the day on Friday across the island. Southerly flow will continue, so we're looking at some periods of fog, certainly along the south coast. And some rain will move in through the day on Friday. We are going to see this trend with the warmer temperatures eventually, but it's going to come with that rain, and so that will stick around right through the weekend. We're looking at our daytime highs anywhere from about 5 to 8 or 9 degrees for most of the province, really all across the board. But again, you're still looking at that potential, mainly in the early morning or the overnight period for Labrador, and that's just because your temperatures are going to dip through the overnight. If we take a look at those temperatures, eventually we will get into those double digits for St. John's and Eastern Newfoundland, but it won't be until the weekend, and again, it will come with some rain. So between 11 to 12 degrees, overnight lows are going to be above 0 once we get to Friday as well, which will be lovely. And then for Central, you're looking at the double-digit temperatures as well. Some more periods of rain in the mix there as well. Your overnight low on Saturday only dipping to 10 degrees and then back up to 13 for your Sunday. But down by the time we get into Sunday night with some single-digit temperatures. So Western Newfoundland, you're going to see more cloudy periods by the time we get into Friday. Saturday, periods of rain. Sunday, you actually may see some clearing late day. But overall, your temperatures reaching the teens by the time we get into Sunday. And then for Eastern Labrador, you're looking at your temperature hovering around 13 degrees, 11 by Sunday, and single digits for Western Labrador as well, as your daytime highs hover between 5 and 7 degrees. Our weather photo of the day. I had to share this photo.
Fantastic.
This was a wicked shot of totality there. This is a solar eclipse in Terra Nova, and Christian shared this great shot with us there. You can see some Bailey's beads there, which is really cool as well.
Just a great shot. It must have like a special lens.
Special lens. Yeah, because it's bright, right? So you have to be able to filter out some of that sun's light to be able to see that. But great, great shot there. There are so many photos that you guys have been sharing with me, and I absolutely love them. And if you'd like to share any more, you can send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Thank you so much for that, Christian. Great, great shot. Really appreciate it. All right, well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Good night.